It would appear I'm far less alone on this planet than I had anticipated. Landing was a bit rough, but I don't think they've spotted me.
You sure you want this?
I need to know what happened. I'll find my way back.
Hello? Is someone there?
What is all this?
We're running out of time.
This isn't happening.
Stop right there, Altera. You're on my turf.
Hey, Robin, you were right. I'm afraid something terrible is gonna happen. If you hear this, love you.
Hey everyone, it's Soul here, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Not too long ago, I discussed in depth why Subnautica was such a huge success. The game had a unique take on the survival genre, mixing in a fantastic story, and through the timing of the YouTube gamers being at probably their peak in all of social media history, the game gained massive success. And with its rapid success, us fans were left with a lot of intrigue and questions about the planet, this world, and the precursors or aliens that built a lot of these structures on the planet. So it's no surprise that a sequel went into the works almost immediately after the first game's release. However, once Subnautica Below Zero was released, the overall feedback from fans seems to be that, well, the game is not good. Don't get me wrong, being back in the incredible planet of 4546b is still really enjoyable exploring all the new creatures around you, but there are quite a few issues that this game has that caused it to be a flop as a sequel. So let's break it down a bit more. Real quick before we do though, I live stream my playthroughs for all of these video game discussions, so if you want, go check them out. They're usually very chill, laid back, relaxed sort of let's play series while I play these games and have a good time talking with you guys. I also have a poll up on my community tab at the release of this video for you guys to let me know which game you want me to review next. I just started playing through Life is Strange, so go vote on what you want me to see play after that. Also, please remember to hit that like button, click subscribe to see more videos from me, and leave a comment down below. Here is your one and only warning that this video contains spoilers. Alright, grab your coffee, wave to Marguerite, and let's dive in. As a continuation of the Subnautica story, Below Zero takes place sometime after the end of the first game. We get to return to planet 4546b, and it's not returning to the lush and full life in the crater area as before, but this time in the Arctic zone. We play as a character by the name of Robin who purposefully strands herself on the planet in order to try and find out what happened to her sister Sam. Sam had been working and researching on the planet under the Altera company before sadly dying in what Altera deemed a situation caused by her own negligence. This mysterious circumstance on how she dies is what originally raises Robin's suspicions, leading her to the planet. Now, similar to the first game, we get to go around trying to survive while also finding clues that help us try and understand what happened here in the past. It's really fun to swim around, running into a lot of creatures that are familiar, and others that are brand new to see. I personally feel the creators handled this balance of blending the new and the old together really well. It's similar enough so it definitely feels like it's part of the same planet, but it's not identical, which is really nice in making this game feel fresh and new. It's also just really fun to be back exploring this world and these sort of mechanics that Subnautica has created, and the general expansions made to the building features in particular allow you to have a lot more options and therefore a lot more fun building a base. You get to change the exterior color and you have a lot more options to make this place feel like an actual home than what we did in the first game. We also get a lot of the great ambient music like we did in the first game, and it just greatly adds to the overall immersion and experience. However, this is sadly where my praise for the game kinda stops. There are quite a few minor issues that I found in this game. I found the land area to be very confusing to navigate due to the weather being just a pain in the butt every 2 minutes. The snow fox was also not easy to control, often getting stuck on the tiniest of rocks or shifts in the ground. I also found that the sea truck was very awkward to move. It barely fit through some of the nooks and crannies in the caves of the games, especially when you started adding on the attachments. I also fell through the map in this game, which is something that I never experienced in the first game. However, aside from those minor issues, which, you know what, to play devil's advocate, let's just assume that that's on me because I do tend to not be the best at driving things in video games. So let's assume that that's an issue with me and not the game. So looking past all of those minor things, there are 3 big problems that I want to discuss. The first is the lack of scares, next is the poorly written story, and the third issue that I have is the early access version of the game causes a lot of problems for the full release. It goes without saying that one of the great things the first Subnautica game did was have all the scares coming from a multitude of different sources. There were a lot of different hostile enemies, both small and large, to create tense and scary moments. But the original game also created scares through the actual ocean environment itself. The open space caused players to panic out of fear of the unknown. We would sort of dive deeper into the seemingly never-ending deep blue waters, and our minds would just start going crazy. Using this open ocean as a scare tactic was also enhanced by seeing the large figures swimming off in the distance or occasionally rising out of the depths to come and get you. It made the players feel so very small and vulnerable, adding to a larger sense of fear and stress as you kept finding new and unexplored pockets of open ocean to explore. Yet, in Below Zero, not only are there less hostile enemies, most noticeably large hostile enemies, but we are also cramped into tight corners and caves in the game due to the map itself being much smaller than the original Subnautica's map. The cramped map also allowed for these very noticeable walls or shifts in biomes when traveling through the different locations. I knew for a fact that the squid shark wouldn't chase me after I made it to a certain point in the cave. I knew that the shadow leviathan couldn't reach me if I just ducked in between some crystals. The open ocean spaces that did exist and did allow for the fewer, larger hostile creatures to exist, namely the Calicerates, was a very limited amount of space, and I knew that when I got to a certain ridge, I would pass through that wall or barrier, and I also knew that I could get from the ground of, for example, the tree spires to the barrier of safety really quickly with hardly any risk of getting pulled into this Leviathan's jaws. The overall cramped feeling actually made the locations feel really separated because of these noticeable barriers. It caused this to feel a bit more like a video game than a cohesive world that is naturally changing into these different biomes at different depths. And in consequence, all of this also resulted in the game as a whole feeling less threatening and less scary than the first one due to all these separated feelings of the monsters being contained to their individual biomes. Moving on to the issues with the story, the general issue that I found was the overall lack of urgency and purpose in what you are doing. You basically get to go around the entire planet alone, or, well, not fully alone because yes, you have Alan in your brain, but there's nothing that really drives you to do anything. There's really not this external factor that's pushing you or pressuring Robin to go forward in the storyline and, for example, build Alan a body. The only reason you actually need to build a body is because Alan just didn't realize that Robin is not okay with him in her head and that she wants him out of her head. But to be honest, Alan is quite easy to forget about as he hardly ever talks. And it's not like Robin is constantly emphasizing how Alan needs to get out as soon as possible. She's actually very calm considering the situation, and it's not like she's freaking out, constantly reminding you as a player that she wants him out of her head. And with Robin being so calm about everything, it doesn't seem to translate any sort of mental struggle or anguish that she may have with Alan into the actual game and gameplay or external personality that we see from Robin at all. And because of the struggle being all internalized, we don't feel any sense of urgency to go and build Alan a body immediately. And it's the same sort of situation for the story of her sister. It's all very internalized and there's no external factor pushing her forward. Robin wants to find out what happened to her, but no one is actually forcing Robin to do so. No one is really pushing her to go find out the truth. And there's also no threat for her looking into this and sneaking on to Altera's bases. There is no risk in either of these stories, and therefore there is no reward for the completion of the plot points in Below Zero. Compare this lack of urgency to the first game, in which we had the looming pressure coming from the fact that you are literally dying from this infectious bacterium, the Karar bacterium. You would get these occasional reminders that your infection is getting worse, causing you pustules on your hand, and it drove you, either consciously or unconsciously, to start to worry and be concerned and be like, we need to heal this character as soon as possible so that they live, so that they can escape, and it would push you along further and further into the story. Even in the early access of Below Zero, we had our sister Sam, who was still alive and communicating with us from a gigantic satellite floating in the sky. The fact that we're communicating with our sister Sam added in the pressure and sense of urgency that we needed to really drive the story forward. Yet, in the full release of Below Zero, there is nothing going on in the present-day timeline of the story that is actually driving us forward once you get Alan in your brain. Everything that we find, either on the story of her sister or the information about Alan, is related to the past. It doesn't give us a true purpose to continue forward and keep pushing us to go deeper and deeper. Going off of that, the story of Robin's sister Sam is essentially pointless. There is no payoff when you complete this game. The whole reason that Robin goes to the planet is because of the fact that she thinks Altera is covering up what really happened to her sister. Why did her sister truly die? They originally said it's because of her own negligence, and upon completion of the storyline, you learn that, well, it actually was Sam's own negligence that killed her. The full story of Sam is that she was working at the Altera base and learned that they were trying to modify and use the Karar bacterium for presumably chemical warfare. With the help of Marguerite, Sam decides they need to stop Altera, and they create the plan that they will destroy both locations, the underwater bacterium research base and the frozen Leviathan site, both at the same time. Yet, while Marguerite was successful in the underwater research base, Sam got caught up in the rubble from the collapsing cave, leading to her own death as she tried to destroy the frozen Leviathan site. Her actions also caused another worker at Altera to get caught in the rubble and killed. Now, I don't know about you guys, but to me, that sounds a lot like her own negligence and her own fault. Quite frankly, Altera actually did her a favor instead of labeling her as a murderer. Yes, of course, it's true, Altera was hiding the information about using Karar for ill intent, but they didn't actually lie about Sam's death. So Robin going there and finding all of this out feels just a bit pointless, or at the very least, very unrewarding and unfulfilling when you finish the storyline. The plotline of Alan is definitely interesting, and I do think that so many of us fans were eager to see what this precursor race of aliens looked like, what they sounded like, and we just wanted to know more about them. So I do like the addition that we get a little bit more information about the architects in the form of Alan talking to Robin. I also like the detail that it was Alan who messed things up at the deep research base in the first game, which is what caused the release of Karar into the planet of 4546b. This expansion on the lore of the architects was awesome, but Alan kinda has no relationship to the plotline of Robin's sister. There is zero overlap between the two stories, which makes the overall experience feel just a bit disjointed. I also personally feel that there weren't enough interactions with Alan to create a really strong and good character dynamic between Robin and Alan. If they move forward with the third game and it's Robin and Alan exploring his home planet together, I don't know if that would be something I'd be interested in, because their relationship and personalities just aren't strong enough for me yet. Throughout the game, I have to admit that it felt like the writers were trying to hold on to that solo experience and feeling of being entirely alone in this vast alien world that we had experienced in the first game. But then they would have to just drop in random dialogue from Alan or Marguerite to suddenly remind us of our objective or the patched up stories. And I'm sorry, but this middle ground approach of trying to create moments in the feeling of being alone when we know that they're just not alone because Alan is always there, it just did not work at all. I often found myself waiting for Alan to say something and wanting him to say anything simply because I knew he was there, so these long, extended periods where Alan would go quiet just felt strange to me. Frankly, I think they should have just committed wholeheartedly to having so many other characters being immensely involved because we've already done the whole isolated experience in the first game. So having the complete opposite effect could have been a lot better, or at the very least, we could have said, hey, at least the developers committed and tried something new. And all of this leads me to the issue of the early access. Everything I've just talked about above in relation to the story and relation to all the issues that I've just had was so much better and managed so well in the early release of this game. Now, as stated earlier, Sam is actually alive in this version of the game, and she is working at the satellite base right above 4546B, while Robin is the scientist that is living at these Alterra bases doing the research. Now, the introduction and the setup for the story and the game is 10 times better, since your base is actually destroyed in a storm, which forces you into survival mode and forces you to live in the water instead of starting off as a character who purposely strands themselves on this planet with apparently no resources. Alan's plot in the Alterra/Sisters plotline is so much more entwined than in the final release, because you have to actually hide Alan's existence from your sister, who you are in constant conversation with. In extension of hiding Alan from your sister, you also have to hide him from Alterra, who is supposedly always listening in to your conversations. You have pressure from your sister to find the right materials and samples to send up to her. You also have to find the right research and materials to help build Alan a body, all while there's this fear of getting caught with having Alan in your brain, exploring parts of the planet that Alterra doesn't really want you going to, and the general concern over your sister's safety as she helps you out on your search for more alien tech, which you really aren't supposed to be doing. On top of all this, you also have the mystery of your missing coworker, who I believe is named Jerry, and you also end up finding Marguerite as well. The overall story just flows a lot more smoothly and cohesively in the early access than it does in the final game. I can't help but feel that they should have never released the early access to this game. Now, here's where I kind of start to sympathize with the developers, because I do think that they realized, much like myself and many other fans as well, that the first game was partially successful due to all of the streamers online playing the game from its early days. They realized that a lot of the joy that people got watching the game and playing through it was playing and watching it from the beginning as it kept growing and adapting to become better and better every single time. To some extent, I do think that they wanted to try and recreate that feeling for the players to see it from the beginning to its final form. However, and this is a bit of a lesson, or rather a warning, for any developer or writer in general, be careful about what and how much you release in an early version. It's not always good to release a snippet, or especially not your full story early, unless you are absolutely certain that that's the plotline you're going for, because otherwise you'll risk ending up with comparisons like this, where you'll have thousands of people like me saying that the early access had a much better story than the final game. It's not often that an early access or early release ruins a final game, since most times the early access just acts as a bit of a teaser or a little snippet of the story. But this is sadly one of the few exceptions that falls into that small percentage. The early release just negatively affected the final version of Subnautica Below Zero. So to sum things up, while I enjoyed playing through the game, it sadly pales in comparison to the first one due to the cramped map, a lack of scares, a boring story with no sense of urgency or purpose in either one of the two plotlines, and the early access version causing a lot of comparisons due to it having a much better plotline with more compelling characters. If you're looking for more of the exploring of creatures, flora, and fauna that the Subnautica games have, then Below Zero is perfect for you with all of the new biomes to discover. But sadly, as a whole, this sequel feels more like a sloppy DLC than a true second game. Before I go, please remember to go over to my community tab and vote on what game I play and discuss next. If you guys like my discussion, please remember to hit that like button down below and leave your thoughts in the comment section. While you're down there, click subscribe to see more videos from me, and turn on notifications if you want to be notified whenever I post a new video. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I will see you future souls next time. Bye, guys!